It's a beautiful Monday evening here in Nigeria, in Lagos specifically. I welcome our viewers here in the country and around the world watching the world today. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Here's what's coming up. A death toll still rising after tornadoes ripped through several U.S. states over the weekend. The world today begins now. Welcome back. Weather events now beginning in the United States, where the death toll has been rising in the aftermath of several tornadoes ripping through several states. At least 19 people are now known to have died at the last count, including 4 children. The states affected are Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Kentucky. A storm prediction center is warning of violent tornadoes, extreme hail, and corridors of widespread wind damage. And the storms continue to disrupt plans and cause power outages, with millions of people facing severe weather threats. More than 110 million people are at risk of severe weather today, concentrated over the East Coast, south of New England, where there is a level 2 out of 5 threat. Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. are most at risk for tornadoes, but the chances for any to develop today are much lower than they've been in recent days. While U.S. President Joe Biden is being briefed about the incidents, some states have declared a state of emergency following widespread disaster.
It was devastating. It was the scariest thing I've ever experienced, and I don't wish this upon anybody. I was so frightened for my kids. All I wanted is for us to be safe. At the moment, yesterday, I wasn't as sad or scared as I am today to see all the damages they caused, all the lives they took. When we started hearing extremely loud noises, I grabbed my baby. We started walking towards the restroom, and all you could see in the living room was the glass of the windows flying, a lot of things flying across. You couldn't even get across because you were going to get hit.
Let's bring in Channels TV's Washington correspondent Maria Birch. She joins us via Skype audio. Maria, Washington, D.C. is one of the states mentioned at risk of more tornadoes today, even though they said the risk could be lower. Is that still the weather status?
Yes, we are still in warnings for those tornadoes and very severe weather storms later in the afternoon. We are at about 12:24 Eastern time here in Washington, and so they're expected at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So in about 3 to 4 hours from now, we're expected to have severe storms. So we're beginning to see the wind pick up, but no rain as of yet.
For the other states that are mentioned, at least 4 of them, how bad is the damage?
The damage is pretty bad across the western, Midwestern region, Kentucky, areas like that. We've seen over 600,000 homes have been affected by these storms. And so this has been a very interesting holiday weekend where these storms are expected to impact more than 70 million people from the south to northeast. And there's about a 2 of 5 risk of severe thunderstorms today. And so this has been a weekend that people are obviously normally very festive, lots of family gatherings, lots of friends gatherings, but we've seen 21 deaths over the weekend between the Kentucky, Arkansas, Texas, and Oklahoma region. So the Midwest obviously is more susceptible to tornadoes typically, but this time of year seems to be a little bit more intensified than we've seen over the past few years. But we've had some very tragic and challenging weather conditions over these past few months.
Yeah, and since you mentioned this month, I do understand the month of May is notorious for tornadoes in the United States. Why is this so?
Well, it's when you're thinking about the weather's changing, so we're now moving from the spring to summer, and because of that increased kind of combustion in the air, we've seen sometimes a little bit more severe weather storms as we head into the summertime. But this year seems to be a little bit more elevated than even years previously.
Maria, back to the disaster and the damage caused by the tornadoes. There are predictions for more tornadoes today. How do states prepare for an upcoming disaster like this? I mean, even though people have been asked to evacuate, what are the preparations that are there on the ground?
Well, the preparations are really people staying at the lower extremities of their homes, so staying in basement areas if there is a tornado warning that's headed, staying off the streets, and just really bracing yourself for very unexpected severe weather storms.
And what plans are there to ensure that the losses are not severe?
Well, there's minimal, real things that can be put in place other than potentially boarding up homes. But even with tornadoes, because of the severe winds that come, even with boarding up your homes, oftentimes it does not stop the intensity from potentially wiping down a home or the power outages. So it's really about the safety and security of individuals, ensuring that they're staying in buildings at the lower level and staying off the streets. That will be the main focal point for the safety areas and especially the governors across the states in the United States.
Well, this disaster is happening in a year that happens to be an election year in the U.S. Will that impact voters' choices?
This should not have any impact on voters' choices unless the Biden administration does not respond in ensuring that people are having the appropriate emergency preparedness and emergency response systems. That's going to be key.
Thanks again, Maria. Do stay safe.
Thank you.
Well, in North America, residents are battling extreme heat as record high temperatures continue in Mexico. Officials say the heat waves, the worst ever recorded in the country, is expected to last for at least another week. The 44-degree Celsius temperature is 4 degrees lower than Mexico's historical record of 48 degrees Celsius, which was recorded on April 24th, 1958. Temperatures in the state of Nuevo León have reportedly soared to 45 degrees Celsius amid a weeks-long heat wave largely driven by the El Nino weather phenomenon. Mexico has been suffering from severe drought over the past year, leaving vast regions of the country battling a water shortage crisis. At least 48 heat-related deaths have been recorded since mid-March. The extreme heat is also impacting wildlife. Some species, such as howler monkeys, are believed to be dying of thirst in southern Mexico. In another development, this time in Papua New Guinea, where the National Disaster Center says more than 2,000 people are feared to have been buried by last week's massive landslide. The disaster occurred in the mountainous Enga region in the northern part of the country. About 3,800 people have been living in the area. An exact casualty figure has been hard to establish, and estimates have varied widely as rescue efforts have been hindered by rubble 10 meters deep in some places and a lack of adequate equipment. Fewer than a dozen bodies have been recovered so far, while the United Nations put the figure of the missing at 670. At least 3 people died Sunday after rivers in Armenia's northern Lore and Tavush provinces overflowed their banks. Rescuers retrieved the body of an unidentified citizen near Sanayin Bridge. They also recovered the body of Avagan, a resident of the village of Haktanak, from the river near the football field in Pakavan. Additionally, the body of Sarebek Balyan was found in the river near Shinok village. 2 bridges were swept away in Tavush province. Another bridge was damaged. 3 residential houses collapsed, 45 houses, 2 hotels, 18 public and other objects were flooded. Due to the situation, the most of the major routes in the city have been closed. Hundreds of people were evacuated from different settlements in northern Armenia. According to rescue services, the rescue operations are still continuing. And at least 7 people, including a child, have died in southern India as tropical Cyclone Remal lashed the area with torrential rain and heavy winds. A 12-year-old girl and her father were among those killed as a poultry shelter that was under construction collapsed in the village in the state of The 5 others were killed also in Telangana. More than 1 million people in India and in Bangladesh were evacuated Sunday as a cyclone made landfall near the border between the two countries. The cyclone has continued to move inland across eastern India, toppling trees, turning roads into rivers, and causing wide-scale damage. The Indian Meteorological Department says it expects the cyclone to gradually weaken on Monday. Authorities said volunteers and army staff have been mobilized to assist with cleanup. Away from weather events now, North Korea has notified Japan of plans to launch a satellite between May 27th and June 4 after putting its first spy satellite into orbit at its third attempt last November. The Japanese Coast Guard says the 8-day launch window began at midnight Sunday into Monday, with North Korea detailing 3 maritime danger zones near the Korean peninsula and the Philippines island of Luzon, where the satellite-carrying rockets debris might fall. A notice came ahead of the first trilateral summit between Japan, South Korea, and China in nearly 5 years. Officials from the United States, Japan, and South Korea held phone conversations after the notice was issued and urged Pyongyang to suspend the plan, as the satellite launch using ballistic missile technology would be in violation of United Nations resolutions, according to Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Nuclear-armed North Korea placed its first spy satellite into orbit in November, following 2 unsuccessful attempts, and a move that drew widespread condemnation. The U.S. called the launch, which came 2 months after Russian President Vladimir Putin met North Korea leader Kim Jong-un at the Cosmodrome in eastern Russia, and promised technical assistance to the isolated country, a brazen violation of UN sanctions. A New Zealand repatriation flight has arrived in Auckland, bringing back American and European citizens in a joint effort to evacuate experts stuck in New Caledonia since violence and riots broke out earlier this month. On arrival, passengers greeted their family members at the airport, hugging loved ones and welcoming them home. Military aircraft reportedly brought back 48 New Zealanders from New Caledonia, the last from the country to evacuate.
We, thank goodness, had some people on the ground to help us coordinate efforts, get them to a central place, and then contact the embassies of the various countries to help organize getting them out. That's really how it's all started. And then literally last night they said, well, we've got a New Zealand military plane that's coming to pick up New Zealanders, but they have extra room. This is the last of the New Zealanders to evacuate. So now we will put New Zealanders and U.S. citizens on the same plane, and that's what we've done. We picked up our New Zealanders and we picked up our U.S. citizens. So the U.S. Embassy, the New Zealand, Australian are coordinating quite closely to help their citizens get out and get safe. To organize when there's so much chaos in New Caledonia has been very difficult. These are missionaries from a church who are serving from the United States, New Zealand, Australia, from all over, come to serve the people of New Caledonia, but now, of course, the conditions are not safe. And so we had some wonderful people that live in New Caledonia who are coordinating efforts, but it's been very difficult to get the latest news where these missionaries were living all over New Caledonia. And there were barricades all over, so they couldn't get from one place to the next.
I think the problem wasn't really the flight possibilities, was more like the access to information. Nothing was super clear, so it was hard to understand how to get out, really.
Exactly, and we got locked down for 2 weeks in total, so it's quite a challenge to find food, to find fuel for the car as well.
Yeah.
They were very kind, we felt very safe with them. Yeah. And we are really thankful that we could join the plane, because the group, because we are not from here, so we are really thankful.
Bringing now to the continent. Now, dozens of Burkinabés have rallied in Burkina Faso's capital to demand a 10-year extension of military leader Captain Ibrahim Traoré's transition term. This is after the military ruler announced an extension of 5 years to his regime. Protesters rallied as security personnel monitored the demonstration, characterized by dancing, holding up signs, and waving Burkina Faso flags while chanting. A state-owned broadcaster says the country's ruler, Captain Ibrahim Traore, will also be able to contest the next presidential election. When he seized power in a coup nearly 2 years ago, Captain Traore pledged to restore the civilian government by July 1st this year. But Burkina Faso has now joined Ibrahim Mali in extending military rule. The move was announced on Saturday after a national consultation meeting in the West African country's capital city, Ouagadougou. An amended charter signed by Captain Traore states that the new 16-month transition period will take effect from July 2nd, 2024. Well, this was an issue my colleague Layo Olarinde raised with a security expert, David Otto, in Abuja.
Remember when the 2022, one of the agreements which the military junta made with the then outset, Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry, Damiba, was that they will, have a transitional period of 2 years. So that transitional period was meant to expire in July of 2024. But of course, the military junta understands that if it does in any way go towards the transitional period, then a lot of the agreements that have been made, for example, the establishment of the Confederation of States, which is now a talk of the day in the Sahel, the kicking out of the French, the establishment of the Alliance of Sahel States, which of course, it's more or less a defense pact. The military junta does not have any guarantees that if it does in any way hand over power to a civilian government, all these alliances that have been formed with, Niger Republic and Mali are going to be, honored. But I think most importantly, it is on a survival mood as well. Because, if you take away power from a military government rather than from a civilian government, then, of course, you have what you call potential for an internal threat from the military itself. So it is trying to, what the young man and the captain, Ibrahim Traore is trying to do is just to consolidate power to ensure that he can be there for quite a long time, while he tries to figure out what happens next.
And we're even seeing the citizens calling for an even longer extension to 10 years. What do you think this means?
Well, it depends on the rhetoric. The Burkina Faso have been driving this rhetoric of, a revolutionary leader who has come in to kick out the colonialists, the likes of France, the likes of the UN missions, now they are coordinating with Niger to kick out the U.S. government presence, in Camp 201. So the people see this leader as some kind of a revolutionary leader who, they want him to stay for a much more longer period. So, again, it could be military's own tactics, to bring out a section of the population to drive this idea. But, when you talk to the people of Burkina Faso, or the people of Burkina Faso, what you hear is that they believe that this is, some kind of a revolution against the colonialists. And Captain Ibrahim Traore does represent that, revolutionary that, was once thought about by people like Thomas Sankara. So he's driving a very strong narrative, and the people, or majority of the people that we can see, are buying it. But remember that the opposition has kicked against and boycotted this constitutional change. And they are saying that, it is simply from the playbooks, of Chad, what happened in Chad with, Mahatma Idris, the son of former Idris Deby, who, did the same thing. He took power from his father unconstitutionally, and now he has run and won, become some kind of a Democrat, overnight.
All right, then. Thank you so much, a security and defense analyst, David Otto.
Thank you.
It's election season in South Africa, where the four main political parties in the country have held their final campaigns ahead of general elections on Wednesday. Ruling party, the African National Congress President Cyril Ramaphosa, affirmed that the governing party is well aware of the harsh realities faced by millions of South Africans. He made the statement while addressing thousands of supporters at the Cyclone rally at FNB Stadium over the weekend. Ramaphosa's comments come amidst criticism of the ANC for not effectively addressing various socio-economic challenges. Our South Africa correspondent, Innocent Simosa, has more.
Well, it's the final stretch, a final push before the May 29 crucial elections. The African National Congress came to Soweto, the biggest township in South Africa, to basically flex its muscles with what they call Siyanqoba Rally, which simply means we are winning. Rounding off the 2024 election campaign with Siyanqoba Rally, which featured a carnival parade celebrating South Africa's culture and diversity. Addressing his supporters, President Cyril Ramaphosa stated that throughout the campaign, his party has noted the challenges raised by South Africans and is committed to addressing them.
We have listened and understood the desire of our people for a better future.
Ramaphosa outlined 6 key priorities over the next 5 years.
The ANC will focus on 6 priorities, just 6 issues to take our country forward. Over the next 5 years, working with all South Africans, we will implement a jobs plan to put more South Africans to work. We will build our industries and invest in an inclusive economy. We will tackle the high cost of living. We will invest in our people and provide services that our people need. We will continue to defend our democracy and advance the freedom that we fought so hard.
Voters are confident of outright majority, and they're asking the ANC to address the following economic challenges.
We are confident in getting 50+1%. I believe that every member of this great organization has done their own groundwork.
You know, when we go out and vote on the 29th of May, we must also have an appreciation that there has been work that's been done over the last 30 years. And so the ANC will then be committing to continue on the good work that they've done going forward.
I asked the question, why should people continue voting for the ANC?
That question is always there every time. ANC is the one which is winning. It is winning. Whether you go which way, but ANC at the end, it will win. It's better the devil that you know.
No, I think the people who are complaining about the ANC is the people who doesn't know exactly the politics, because and the history of our country. Because the ANC is the only party which their constitution is fair and equal to everybody in the country.
President Ramaphosa and the ANC leadership can only hope to translate these numbers into votes. From Johannesburg, South Africa, Innocent Simosa, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, special voting commenced today in South Africa, catering to those who have registered for special status in the election. Party agents, the elderly, the sickly, and the incarcerated took part in elections across the country, including people living with disabilities. Special elections are for people who, for some reason or the other, are not able to vote May 29th. Special vote allows a registered voter who cannot vote at their voting station on election day to apply to vote on a predetermined day before the election. Welcome back. It's Children's Day here in Nigeria. In Lagos, the state's Deputy Governor Kadri Hamzat has assured the country and its citizens of commitment to provide enabling school environment for teaching and learning. He was making the comment earlier today. He says 9 new schools have been built at remote areas for pupils to have access to education, and Project Zero program has helped over 11,000 children return to school.
It's the 2024 Children's Day celebration at Police College, Lagos. Children from Lagos State Public Schools are all excited to be here to have fun.
Dr. Kadri Obafemi Hamzat.
May 27th is the date set aside to celebrate children in Nigeria. The Deputy Governor of Lagos State, Kadri Hamzat, and other top government officials are here to celebrate them.
I must let you know that the administration of our governor, Babajide Olusola Sanwo-Olu, has invested enormously in your education by providing all that you need to meet your true potentials. You are the future of our dear state and nation. Therefore, I implore you to continue to challenge yourself and to excel in both academic and co-curricular activities. The state government has put a lot of facilities at your disposal, and you have that to effectively use them to your advantage. We equally acknowledge the role of our teachers in mentoring these children. You are indeed our nation builders, and we salute your commitment.
Know the importance of child education and provide easy access for every child. The Deputy Governor says over 11,000 children have been taken off the streets of Lagos to return to their studies.
To help more children go to school, we have added 9 new schools in very busy and remote areas of our state. These new schools now have 4,588 students, with 2,310 being girls and 2,278 boys. We have also improved many existing schools. Through the Project Zero program, we have helped 11,957 children who are out of school get back to their studies with all the supplies that they will ever need.
This year's theme, Advocate for Children's Safety, Policies and Actions that Protect and Support Children's Well-Being, a major priority for the Lagos State government across all levels.
Lagos State Chapter.
As the usual practice, the event was rounded off with a march past by the primary and secondary school students across all local government areas of Lagos State.
We're going all the way to Italy now, where Pope Francis and the United Nations Children's Fund Chief Catherine Russell joined some 70,000 children, many of them from war-torn countries, along with their parents, local celebrities, and hundreds at the Olympic Stadium. At the event, promoted by Pope Francis and organized by the Holy See's Dicastery for Culture and Education, Ms. Russell urged children in the stadium and those watching around the world to help create a more peaceful, equitable, and livable world. Her visit coincided with marking 5 decades of advocacy and fundraising efforts by UNICEF's National Committee in Italy this year. She thanked the government and people of Italy for their long-standing support for UNICEF's work on behalf of children around the world. I'll tell you where else people were flocking to over the weekend. It's Moscow Center to take part in the annual stand-up paddleboarding regatta as part of the 8th Moscow On the Wave Fish Festival. Professional and amateur subboarders paddled along the Volotovny Canal, according to the vice champion of the race, who took part in the event for the 4th time, Evgeny Kotzer. The scale of the event becomes bigger every year. Winner of the regatta was Ivan Shershov. He admitted that most of his loyal fans, which is his kids, motivated him to come first, while Natalia Novitskaya, the vice world champion and Russian champion in subboard, shared that the race was an opportunity for her to train for the upcoming European Championship.
Мне, конечно, быть здесь и грести с такими крутыми барышнями. Сегодня нет, а вообще, конечно, видела. Сегодня только...
It was certainly fun for those who watched. Thanks for watching The World Today. I'm Amarachi Ubani.